SNHell, a look back at Saturday Night Live with your hosts, Matt and Keith. Brought to you by Lions Den Audio Theater. Like and subscribe to Lions Den Audio Theater for more Lions Den goodness. And here are your hosts, Keith and Matt.
Saturday Night Live, Season 4, Episode 11, starring Cicely Tyson, originally aired on February 10th, 1979. Hello and welcome to SNHell. My name is Keith. With me, as always, my good buddy Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Keith. How's it going?
I am good. I'm doing all right. How are you, my friend?
I'm not too bad, thanks. Looking forward to another Saturday night with you.
Yes. We're going way back. It's February 79, but we're on our way, buddy. We're going to be here soon.
Oh, I can't wait.
We're counting down our births, I guess. We are two separate entities. Joining us tonight, I'm delighted again, is Adrienne. Hello, Adrienne. How you doing?
Hello. I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad to hear you're doing pretty good, too. Glad to be here.
Doing all right. So tonight, Cicely Tyson, she is the host tonight, an extremely talented, versatile actor. She really has a boatload of awards for her work. Her career was extremely extensive, but it was somewhat limited in a way due to her insistence of playing strong black women at a time when such roles were few and far between. When she did get them, she nailed them out of the park. She began her career in 1958 at the Harlem YMCA, and a few years later, that's where she came across Garrett Morris. She'd had a theater career and a few movies and some modeling prior to the 70s, but in the 70s, shit kicked into high gear, and she was getting tons of awards and nominations for movies, television, for the autobiography of Miss Jane Pittman, and also for playing Coretta Scott King in the miniseries King. She was got a lot of nominations. And one of the first things I ever saw her in was she played Binta in Roots, Kunta Kinte's mother. And she got a nomination for that as well. I have to sort of guilty pleasure it and say that the first thing I remember seeing her in was when she played Sipsy in Fried Green Tomatoes, probably my favorite, pardon the term, chick flick. I thought she was fantastic in this. Later in her life and career, she was in her 90s when she was in The Help, which came out a number of years ago and was extremely popular. And her last gig was released in 2020, sadly passed away 2021, I believe. She was, I think, 96 years old. Quite a career, quite a pioneer. Always a tremendous actor. Is there anything you guys have run across that you recognize the name for?
I knew she was in Roots with LeVar Burton, and I had never seen her in anything that I'm aware of, but I knew that she'd gotten the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama a number of years ago.
She certainly did. It was the same night Lorne Michaels got it, actually, oddly enough.
Interestingly enough.
Jeez, what a life.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it's obvious to you. It certainly wasn't to me. She's 54 years old during this episode.
No, I wouldn't have guessed that.
No, I wouldn't have thought that at all.
And always apparently played parts that were far younger than she was. Like I was reading a list of the roles she played, and it's like she was 2 years younger than so-and-so who played her father, 10 years younger than so-and-so who played her grandfather. And it's just this list of like that. But yeah, no, very young looking.
Being married to Miles Davis probably can't be easy.
And I think they had two stints where they were together as in a relationship and then parted ways for a number of years and then got back together. They were married in the 80s. I know Miles had slowed down a bit by then, but he was still Miles Davis.
Yeah. Musical
guest tonight is Talking Heads. Adrienne, whenever I hear of Talking Heads, I'm immediately transported back to your living room where you were playing I remember if it was a Talking Heads video or just a long David Byrne concert video, but Talking Heads transports me back to your awesome dining room table.
Amazing. I'm thrilled to hear that. We've introduced the children to Talking Heads, and they're both fans as well.
Matt, you're a Talking Heads fan, right?
Yeah, I like the Talking Heads. I've been a fan for a while. I was super excited to hear that they were going to be on tonight. Really looking forward to this.
Nice. And Third Chair Chili had mentioned that he just discovered Talking Heads like about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, and has become a fan as well. I am not as passionate as you folks are, but we'll talk all about that later. Some interesting points about this episode. This is the highest rated episode of Saturday Night Live to date, all 49 seasons, this one had a 42 share and over 17.6 million viewers. Just to put that in perspective, the season average at the time was 13.1 million. Now, there are some discrepancies about ratings here and there, but genuinely speaking, and according to longtime writer Jim Downey, this is the peak of ratings.
How unfortunate.
That's I mean, I guess it doesn't really surprise me. The show is hot.
Yeah.
Like, they're on fire. Belushi is everywhere. The cast are getting hooted at like wrestlers. Everybody's a star. Deals are happening. It's a huge hit. They're big TV stars, and yeah, I'm not surprised that right around season 4, when everybody's really cracking, that they're hitting peaks like this.
Yeah, and this is a huge star at the time that appeals to a slightly different demographic than they're used to getting. So it didn't surprise me, but like Adrienne says, it is rather unfortunate for reasons we'll go into in a minute. I don't believe in disclaimers or anything like that necessarily. Well, I kind of do. But on occasion, Matt and Adrienne, I don't think you have been accused of such, but Matt and I have, especially in our early episodes, of being a tad too sensitive to jokes and stuff that has been said. And I think for this episode, I think we really should mention that there's a certain degree of rewatching these shows through the lens of 2023, which we are doing. Things that will possibly offend. Matt and I have often said, all of us have often said, that wouldn't make TV today. I think in this case, we're going to deal with a lot of material in this episode that I don't think you can overlook how salacious or un-PC or, pardon the term, but not woke it is. I wanted to put this in here because as I watched the show the second time, I really tried to watch it through a lens of the time as best I could. And there are certain words and there are certain phrases and certain things that are just not acceptable ever, but were used more commonly then. Opted, and I think this is the right thing to do, is to not forgive things necessarily for being in the time, but yet at the same time to sort of say, for good or bad, these folks were going for a laugh. They are not necessarily terrible people. They are probably good people in an ignorant time. And I think I wanted to phrase that here because this is a very not good episode for sensibilities, because pretty much everyone is attacked at some point, and not in a way where you can see wit all the time or cleverness all the time. Does that make sense to you guys?
I think that's well put. I mean, it was a different time, but still there's a lot of things that yeah, I know we're going to get into it further throughout this one, but I think you put it really well there.
I agree. Very well put. I don't think it is academically logical to assume these people are bad people just because they lived in a previously more ignorant time. Look how far we've come. It's a lot of work to do. I hear what you're saying, and I agree.
The cold open, we start with a bumper. Emergency starring Megan Marshak will not be seen tonight in order to bring you SNHell or SNL. Do you guys know who Megan Marshak is?
No.
Okay, this bumper becomes the funniest bumper ever with this knowledge. I didn't know either. I had to look it up. 24-year-old Megan Marshak was an aide to former Vice President Nelson Rockefeller. When 70-year-old Rockefeller suffered a fatal heart attack in January of 1979, he and Marshak were alone together, partaking in what a Rockefeller spokesperson said was a undeniably intimate circumstance.
Oh my.
Yes. So there's another joke about Marshak later. 70-year-old Rockefeller, final moments were spent in the company of a 24-year-old woman who later got like $45,000 in his will, which is peanuts for Rockefeller, but still not bad.
I was going to say, that's a light bag.
Yeah. So we begin at the lockers where the stars of the hottest show on television store their belongings. Gilda and Jane are talking about how a big John Belushi piece has been cut because the character he was supposed to take off, Chinese Vice Premier Deng Xiaoping, has returned to China. Gilda is worried about John's reaction, but Jane says she just saw him in the makeup room and he looked fine. Gilda says she saw the look in his eyes and she's worried that he's going to start throwing stuff again. John enters looking a bit like Deng Xiaoping. Gilda runs off. John wonders what's wrong with Gilda, and Jane says she's worried that he was going to hit her. He says he's fine with the thing being cut, and Jane said, well, that's good because your Deng is just like your samurai, only without a sword. John then goes on to explain the difference between impersonating Japanese and Chinese characters and how to walk and do the voice. And he says he's not angry that the thing is cut because his life is good. He made a hit movie. He has a #1 album on the charts and is on the best show on television. Jane says it's a big change for John, who would usually react poorly to such a thing. But John says nothing's worth losing his head about. If the show gets canceled, he'll just get more work, unlike Jane, who will wind up doing improv in Boston. He said he came back because he wanted to, and this is the new John Belushi. Jane is pleased that there's a new John Belushi, and it's all thanks to a little success and a lot of heroin. He then swings to hit her, but she is gone, and he winds up taking out some of the lockers and then gives the live from New York. Wow. Okay. Jane was excellent here, and John, for performance-wise, was very good. But looking back on this sketch today, there is like so much wrong, and there's no way. I'm not even talking about the Chinese impression. There's just so much here that they would not do today. I mean, John Belushi is dead in 3 years' time from a heroin overdose that was fueled by his success. So many cast members, future cast members. Jane goes on to have an excellent career, as we've talked about, and as most listeners know. But like so many other cast members do wind up going back to do improv in Boston or wherever. In the end, Jane gets the one up. I mean, high energy, good performance, but it's hard to really like this.
Yeah, exactly. I had my note was it's awkward and too mean, and oh no, the heroin was my note. Yeah.
I thought the lockers were pretty funny. I gave me a little bit of a chuckle that they're hanging out there like high school kids at the lockers. The performances were good. Jane was really good when she had that shit-eating grin on her face when Belushi is going off. And of course, he is so good at doing this type of role, carrying this type of attitude. And you know, I didn't find the Chinese thing any more offensive than we should ever find the samurai thing, so I didn't really think that was a big deal. I'm over it. Jane took a wicked and dark dig at him, and there was kind of like a honeymooners joke to follow. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I liked it.
Did you notice the understated but no?
No, I didn't notice.
No? He said, I could have stayed in Hollywood and done another movie. I could have done a lot of things, but no.
I'm sorry I missed that.
I didn't see that till the second watch through. So the monologue. Cicely Tyson is announced, and she comes down the stairs, but it turns out it's Garrett Morris. The audience is absolutely in stitches, and he starts talking about how he reacted when he was called by SNL to come host. But then the actual Cicely Tyson comes up on stage. The audience goes nuts again. She asks what he's doing, and he says he's really surprised to see her. He says when he heard she was coming, he assumed that it was going to be a role he was doing. And he says that he was hired to be a token member of the cast, and his contract says he's going to play all the parts darker than Tony Orlando. She mentions that he plays a lot of women roles, and she wonders what happened to him, because they worked together in the 60s, and she expected big things from him. And she wonders where his integrity has gone. She says that he has a responsibility as a black actor to perfect his craft and to be a hero to others, but he's acting like a clown. He says it doesn't look bad on his resume, and he gets to keep the dresses. This one here, there's a bit of socio-political commentary that I certainly don't feel qualified to make on this one. On one hand, this was a very funny sketch, and Tyson and Morris throughout this episode are going to work excellently together. On the other hand, there is a lot of truth in this, like the last one. Poor Garrett, like he was getting praised by some, but he was getting absolutely abused for the choices he was making on this show. There was a lot of exactly what she was saying that was being thrown at Garrett because he was, wearing dresses and playing butlers and all that sort of stuff. We've chronicled the Garrett stuff. This backlash, along with being treated like absolute garbage by many of his coworkers, goes on to fuel some of Garrett's own problems. All I'm going to say is this. It's 45 years later, and Garrett Morris is alive and well. He's had an amazing career, and 1 week from the day we record this will be his 87th birthday, and he'll celebrate that by getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was a struggle for Garrett, but in the end, he's getting part of what he deserves, I think. And I'm going to leave it at that.
I agree. I think that there were some really good points that were made in this monologue, and I enjoy seeing the two of them together. They seem to just really genuinely get along well, even if they are counterpointing off each other a bit in this monologue. I thought it was really nice to hear her perspective.
Yeah, I thought the monologue was excellent. The crowd pop for Garrett was great. Start the show off hot. Cicely looks like she's having a blast. She was clearly having a good time. That it's in his contract that he plays all parts that are darker than Tony Orlando was hilarious. And he means all the parts. The reading, the obvious reading of the cards is very distracting from our host this evening. But yeah, I thought Garrett was really funny, and I get to keep the dresses was a funny line. I thought it was a terrific monologue, great use of the host.
It's funny you mentioned the cue cards, Matt. Cicely Tyson was the first host who openly didn't want to use cue cards at all. Frank Zappa, but that's a different story. And it was only on the Friday where she finally relented and said, I'm going to need them. And allegedly the cue card guys were up all night filling out her cue cards.
Damn girl. Yeah, did she ever need them? Apparently she didn't know shit. She was looking at those constantly.
Yeah, I didn't notice it, but I wasn't looking either. The IMDb says that Cicely Tyson also let the writers know her opinion on the material they were giving Garrett. It winds up not really doing any good, though.
Good for her.
Yeah. So this next sketch is definitely a high point. Unfortunately, it is also a rerun. But I loved it. I think it was Matt and our third chair Harris's favorite of the night. It was on. It's from the Steve Martin episode 404. It's an ad for a concert tour for Elvis's coat. Adrienne, the floor is yours.
I loved this.
I knew you would.
This is the first time I've seen this. It was so dumb, but like there was just this commitment to the bit with all the people they were talking to, and the way they kept panning to the coat just being on stage. I thought it was the dumbest thing ever, and I loved it.
How much did it remind you of the old like Ravine or Carlton Show Band ads that we used to see as children?
It was so much like them. It was stupid, but I could see people who would go. I know of people who would probably go see Elvis Presley's coat.
I said that on the last episode that this would outsell a lot of shows that actually were advertised like this.
It definitely would.
The Widettes. This is the second entry from the Widettes. We have Jane entering and answering the phone, saying that she's having company and can't go to the Save the Whale concert. Dan returns home as her husband. He's coming home from work, but he also has a bunch of cheesecakes. He gets her to look out the window because the neighborhood's kids have toilet papered their trees. John Belushi, as their son Jeff, enters, eating and carrying a basketball. He says that there's a game that night, but he'll probably get stuck being a bench warmer. Gilda enters as their daughter Tammy Widett. Hip checks her parents over on the couch so she can sit because she's not feeling well. Her mother says she'll have to go take her temperature and takes from the buffet a very long rectal thermometer to take her temperature. Garrett and Cicely arrive as Earl and Wilma Bass, their neighborhood friends, and they both also have very large rear ends. I happen to notice that the shape of Garrett's large butt is absolutely ridiculous. They talk about the press making a big fuss over President Carter having hemorrhoids. Dan's character points out that everyone has hemorrhoids. They then start eating voraciously. Cicely's character, Wilma, and Jane's character reminisce over how they first met. While this is going on, Garrett stands up and Cicely tries to balance her glass on Garrett's ass, but she can't. Dan then opens a drawer to get a coaster and backs up, but his butt knocks Jane's contact lens out. All four begin to look for it, and as they bend down, you can hear the sound of 4 pairs of pants ripping. The only thing I laughed at here was Garrett's misshapen rear end. That was really about it. I kind of wish the cup gag had worked, but it didn't. These are ridiculous. This is the second one we've seen in a very short amount of time. It is one bad joke. They do look so much fun to do as performers, but I mean, this is ridiculous. This is not much. Saturday Night Live was parodied on The Simpsons with the Big Ear family. That is what this reminds me of, and that was purposely not good. So,
no, this one wasn't much better than the other one. It had a bit of a better ending than the previous one we saw, where there was actually a joke at the end.
Yep.
The big rectal thermometer was pretty funny, but they didn't need to go into actually doing it in the other room. The cast seems to like doing it. The big rectal thermometer was a funny sight gag. Garrett's butt was funny.
Yeah, I remember these people. The first thing I wrote in my little notes here was, "Oh no." So that's pretty much sums up what I thought of the first sketch. But what a ride. I liked how Belushi was kind of playing to the crowd when he came in, doing the stone cold strut. He's loving his fame. I noticed all the cans of Coke on the coffee table. There was so much Coke. And I was, listening to the characters' accents and just trying to find something else here, because I felt that there was more than I felt when I watched the first sketch. There's like a weirdness in the consumptive obscenity of these people. So if I view it as more of like just a gross obscenity kind of sketch. I mean, Dan kind of dropped some very real media commentary there about the coverage of personal issues, but then they're eating Twinkies and ring dings and junk food. And you know what? You know what they're saying, but they can't say on TV? These are sick, stupid, fat fucks. And there is a darkness to their consumption. I thought Cicely was excellent in this, by the way. Garrett bending over like a fucking table is Twin Peaks laugh out loud funny. And when they all went to the ground, when they all kind of like dropped on all fours at once, I also got a good laugh. I thought this was very good late night TV. I actually loved it because I looked at it very differently. And it wasn't just like aspon. It's that look at these disgusting, gross pigs. And if you look at it like that, there is a dark humor to it. And I think I found it. And maybe I read way too much into it. I don't know, man, but that's how I felt.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm shocked. I tend to forgive silly a bit more, but I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, they're like animals at a show. Like, look at these gross things.
Because I honestly think the whole thing is just a play on Tammy Wynette's name.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like I said, I could be way off. Art is subjective. That's how it made me feel.
Garrett and Cicely's characters are Earl and Wilma Bass. Do you think Bass is big ass, sort of a portmanteau, if you will?
I do now.
I assumed so.
Okay. Because I was worried I was reading too much into it. Obviously not as much as Matt was reading into it, right or wrong, but I was like, have I discovered something no one has ever mentioned? We are now off to the Shah's final days, which I believe is a Franken and Davis. Sure seems like one. We get shots of riots in Tehran in the shot of the U.S. Embassy in Iran. I noticed they spelled Tehran wrong. So this starts in the outer office of a U.S. Embassy where a receptionist sits, and we have Gilda in a burqa yelling in a high-pitched mock Farsi at Lorraine's Sherry Norwalk, who is back as a secretary here at the embassy. Dan comes in as his hippie character Jason, and he wants to speak to the ambassador. He wants to know if he can possibly get $700 in traveler's checks so he can get home. When home, he promises to send the money back. The ambassador is too busy to speak to him. Sherry wonders if he has any tapes or records because she can't get any American music in Iran. He has ABBA, but she says she doesn't like it, though she is listening to the Village People and keeps playing YMCA and singing along. Cicely enters as Gail Burns, a reporter from the Washington Post who wants to interview the ambassador about the political upheaval in the country. And then John enters as Roger Ferguson, a CIA agent. Burns wants to know if the Shah is in with the ambassador. He won't say to her, but he does ask Sherry if the Ashe is in. Roger says he's confused and dismayed about what's going on. And Sherry says it's gotten really heavy because the Iranian people don't like the Shah anymore, and they keep shouting death to the Shah. Roger then goes in to see the ambassador, and we can hear some loud banter. Jason then speaks to Gail about doing a story about traveling around the Middle East and talking about nude beaches and where to get the best dope, and if the Post could front him the money. She tells him to call High Times. Roger then exits the inner office with the Shah, played by Bill Murray, who is crying. It's implied that Roger is going to help the Shah escape. The ambassador then calls out to send in the next appointment. Dan's Jason gets up to go in, but Gilda jumps on his back and starts screaming again in mock Farsi. Lorraine was absolutely great. Jason is often good. I like the character. He reminds me of a lot of folk, and I thought Belushi was very good, and Bill looked a heck of a lot more like the Shah than I ever thought he would have without a huge makeup job. There was not much for Cicely to do in this one other than to like play a straight man to nobody and everybody all at once. And I really enjoyed just this cameo of the band member Maurizio Smith just sitting there waiting. But watching this again from this era, from this side of history, they have no idea how bad things are going to get between the U.S. and Iran to this day. Jesus, I couldn't help but watch thinking like even 6 months later, this sketch could not have existed. High grades for Lorraine in this, though.
Yeah, Lorraine was great at kind of controlling the chaos, if you will. I liked Cicely in it. I haven't seen Dan's hippie guy before, but I wasn't really wild on him. The way he kept pawing at his hair irritated me. I don't even know how to explain it. It was like there was like nothing happened in it, and it was chaos, and I didn't like the chaos, but I appreciated Lorraine. I don't know how to describe how I felt about it.
He really nails the traveling douchebag that's, backpacking through Europe thing. Almost a little too on the nose for me. And I found his twitchy performance really unpleasant to watch. It made me, physically uncomfortable watching him. Of course, you guys already went over Lorraine. She was great. I thought it was hilarious when Belushi was smacking the guy on the stomach on his way in and out of the office. Yes. I didn't think it was boring at all. I thought it was weird, maybe a little distasteful, and overall, I definitely enjoyed it.
This is the last appearance of Jason Aykroyd's hippie. We've seen him since the Peter Boyle episode. The last time we saw him was that terrible Frank Zappa sketch, A Night on Freak Mountain. But Matt, I think he's appeared 4 times. You've liked 2 and you've not liked 2. So
this was a bad one. Yeah, this was a bad one.
So never a major character, but he had a few appearances here and there. We are now off to Talking Heads. These guys are new wave legends. They'd really only been together as a group for about 3 years at this point. To this day, they have a huge following. In many ways, they're more appreciated and revered today than they ever were. At this point in time, their best years were certainly ahead of them, but they were hitting the ground running as a new group. News-wise, after decades apart, they just kind of reunited to do interviews to promote a re-release of their 83 concert, Stop Making Sense. At this point, their last album was more songs about buildings and food, which peaked at 26. Tonight, they perform a cover of Al Green's Take Me to the River, which peaked at 26. I actually thought this song was much older than Al Green, but it wasn't. First off, the band was placed in the corner of like one of their basement or jail sets. I still want more sets for bands, please. I'm familiar with the Al Green version, a little familiar with this one. I always think it's an odd version of the song, but extremely different from the original and very catchy. They're a very fun band to watch, but I sometimes find David Byrne's vocal snips a bit much. Frankly, I don't know how he got away with it without being laughed off stage in their earliest gigs, but the music is never bad. This is a very captivating performance. Sometimes David Byrne's vocals just piss me off, and I think I'm going to be in the minority here for that.
You'll be the opposite of me on this one, but that's okay. I thought they were perfect for Saturday Night Live. I love Take Me to the River. I love their version of Take Me to the River. It was weird and theatrical, but in an understated way, and just so cool. And the way David Byrne is like staring into the audience's soul, it draws you in, and I thought it was perfect, and I loved it.
My notes are pretty much like Adrienne's, I must say. I also noted the effortless cool that the band has. I think his voice is incredible, and the performance was pretty hypnotic with the swaying and the beat. It's not my favorite Talking Head song. It's not like I might even skip it if I was listening, but this performance just really draws you in visually. And again, it's great late night TV. It'd be cool to see them do something a little weird again. I really like the Tom Tom Club.
Yeah, Tom Tom Club was the band without him, or?
That's correct.
Yeah, and they're very cool.
Frontier Midwife. We have a crawl that introduces this as a sketch about the opening of the West, where men and women were as big as the frontier they tame. They say it was built on blood and sweat, but then they back up a little bit to let us know that it wasn't literally built on blood and sweat. They talk about doctors being few and far between and infant mortality being as high as the mountains the babies died on. They then talk about the strength of the tough breed of women who birthed babies known as the frontier midwives. So we're in a cabin, and John and Bill are done up as frontiersmen, and they're playing checkers. Dan then enters as Frenchie, a French frontiersman, who talks about the paths being blocked and everything being frozen. He found a friend frozen to death in his bed, but he brought his cat, and he throws a frozen cat on the table. They mention that their friend Renee is not doing well, and he's in bed dying. Cicely Tyson then comes in as a frontier midwife and starts ordering the men around and telling them to get ready. She orders one to boil some water, and she starts ripping up the sheets. She says who she is and what she does. She's a frontier midwife. They say they don't need her. She is under the assumption there's a pregnant woman there, and the men say they haven't seen a woman in 2 years. And then Renee, their friend, pops up. As they realize they haven't seen a woman in 2 years, their sexual libido fires at the realization that there is a woman here. And all four close in on her. And John says, this isn't your episode, lady. And the bumper says, join us next week when she delivers her own baby. So this is a comedic sketch that basically ends with four white guys getting ready to rape a black woman. Wow. So yeah, this is the highest rated episode of Saturday Night Live of all time. I'll pick some good stuff from here. The costumes were good. Bill gives a line that says, does anyone know who this woman is? Got a big laugh from me. Thought the crawl was hilarious. Thought the cat was funny. But my goodness, what a horrid ending of what could have been a pretty good sketch. Even Cicely was fantastic when she came in. I really cringed at this one.
Yeah, and that's the thing with it. It could have been good. And that's part of what made me so mad. It didn't need to have violence against a strong black female character in there. They could have still had almost the same joke and made, like, I don't know, a donkey be pregnant and she have to deliver the donkey's baby and they don't know which of them is the father of this donkey's baby, which would still be over the top and terrible, but it would not be a hate crime. The start started out so strong and then it went super downhill and so mad.
I thought the crawl was great, and Fly to Denver was a really funny example of just something we can do now. Fly to Denver. I thought the title card was really funny too. When Frontier Midwife came up, it got a good pop out of me. Yeah, the host all in on her performances this evening, doing such a good job, really disappearing into the sketches. And I also noted, does anyone know who this woman is? Bill was just a hilarious out of the blue line. And then the end just kind of happens right away. And I was like, what the fuck? This is what happened to Freddy Krueger's mom. She got trapped in the asylum overnight. But yeah, holy shit. It was, I'm looking at it and I'm looking at these guys and I'm looking at this set and I'm thinking about when it is. This is totally like one of those 42nd Street movies, like The Hills Have Eyes, where, it's like a little mini exploitation movie. So I do see what they were going for. But gosh, the shock of it really I couldn't believe it just ended.
And the thing for me is, I was watching and I said, how could this be exactly the same with one minor change and make it better? And even the fact that it ended with her fighting them off as they're closing in, if it had ended 10 seconds before or 5 seconds before, it might have even been salvageable. But my goodness, what a way to end a sketch on a comedy show. And again, I'll point out, highest rated episode of all time.
And there's still more terribleness to come.
Yes. Weekend update. Brisket, the crackers that are both bite-sized and circumcised. Update pays homage to the death of Sid Vicious. It looks like they're going to talk about Rockefeller, but they sort of about face on that. Rockefeller's will mentions that Meghan Marshak is going to get a loan forgiveness of $45,000 and a certificate for a CPR course. Jimmy Carter's approval ratings went from 42% to 28%. And there's an image of his family on a boat, and Bill reports that they have been set adrift for 2 weeks. We have a Patty Hearst joke, followed by a joke about a Pakistani president being executed. Then one about exploding Ford Pintos, and they say that Ford was trying to make a portable 5-passenger stove. Then we have Dan Aykroyd, strictly speaking, and he talks about U.S.-China relations. He says he's not pro-China or pro-Taiwan. He says it's hard to feel sorry for Taiwan, as it's a country that has a corner on the market of cheap souvenirs. And he talks about how China is sending the U.S. things like ancient wisdom and herbal medicine, and U.S. in return is sending things like Coca-Cola and McDonald's hamburgers. He worries that Coke and McDonald's might awake a sleeping giant and make Chinese folks feel terrible. For me, the highlight of this was the bite-sized and circumcised. This was a very, very dark update, and there was just not much in the way of jokes here. I don't know what was going on with this one. They just went super dark on a lot of the jokes, and it didn't work for me.
Completely agree. The briskets was the best part.
Weekend update. I think the best part was the great opening with him having an inflatable child. That picture was hilarious. I really liked.
Oh yeah, Anwar Sadat was holding up a child and giving him a kiss, wasn't it?
But yeah, it was pretty dark. I mean, this is a pretty dark episode. I also liked the joke with Carter on the boat, sending him out on the boat. I found it much more current affairs-y than usual, so I wasn't always keeping super abreast. It was really weird to hear him talk about China like that. We've come such a long way in our relations with the Red Dragon I just found it was strange. It was fascinating though, but it wasn't my favorite weekend update. It was kind of weird, and not a lot of ha-has in it.
I did get a real kick out of the line that Dan said, though. It's hard to feel sorry for a country that has the market cornered on cheap ceramic souvenirs.
Really, though.
We are now at Nick Rails. So Nick the Lounge Singer, he's back singing, but this time he's on a train car. He sings a version of Love Train. He then speaks to Dan, who is Captain Dr. Risley, an Army urologist who's heading to a Florida hospital. And Nick asks what kind of car he has. He then sings the song from MASH with his own words. He goes over to Cicely and Andy Murphy, longtime extra, who gets a line here. Cicely is playing a prisoner who is being taken from Illinois back to Florida, where she is wanted. And we see that Cicely and Murphy are handcuffed together. Bill then goes over and speaks to Lorraine and John. They are going to visit her mother, who just got a new pacemaker down in Florida. He asks about their car. They say they have a Mercedes. He then gets into a bit about how fascinated he is by Jewish people having German cars. Talks about watching Holocaust and throwing up all over his VW. He then notes that he watches the cars on the car train, and they're no better than each other. They're not treated any different, and we should all be the same. He says driving on the train changes people, and it's made him more accepting. Then he goes on to sing Billy Joel's I Love You Just the Way You Are. I thought everyone was pretty good in this. The awkwardness of the closed setting, the small train car, and having to sit there putting up with Nick singing 2 feet away from you instead of 8 feet away from you really got me for some reason. I was really glad to see Andy Murphy get a line here. He's going to be around till the 90s. Nick's banter was very cringy here in the comic sense of cringy. It was not a great Nick, but considering the rest of this episode, this was actually not too bad.
Yeah, I liked the tightness of the set. I liked Nick Rails. He was a skeezy lounge guy. This is the first time I've seen him. He was annoying, but he was supposed to be, I assume. But it felt too long. I did enjoy his speech about being on the train and how no cars are treated better than others, all that. It did feel too long and not funny enough.
Yeah, that's kind of the general consensus. I'm surprised this is your first Nick. I guess it's just been weird scheduling.
I thought it was really funny that he wants to talk to the urologist. The MASH theme song was really funny. I was really confused at first. I don't know if I looked away for a second, but I was like, is this, and this show is being so dark overall. I didn't know if she was being arrested or trafficked or what was going on, or because they were handcuffed. And then I was like, okay, she's going to the jailhouse. Bill is excellent at this. It's like my dream job. I'd love to do this job for the rest of my life. I'd do that job.
It'd be great. Found Cicely was like, I felt during this one, I was like, did she forget she's on a comedy show and she's actually just acting?
He was panicked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was sold at I was buying what she was selling. Also Lorraine, when Lorraine kept taking the mic, that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Holy shit, I love that. Belushi was really all in on his bits tonight too. I thought the Volkswagen bit was hilarious. And I think Bill Murray's rambling in this weird lounge in this strange setting is just great late night television, which is what I want out of this show. His singing theatrics are a really big hit with me too.
We're now off to Black Perspective, and it's Garrett hosting with Cicely Tyson. They're playing themselves, and she's on the show today to discuss role models. She says she tries to choose her parts that demonstrate Black women as strong role models. Garrett says that Hollywood wasn't always that kind, and she notes that for a long time, the only parts available to Black women were maids, and she grew up thinking that white people didn't know how to pick up after themselves. Garrett asks why Hollywood took too long to come around and start giving good roles to Black people. She says that until recently, races were judged by the men, and she thinks that Black men are losers. Garrett is stunned by this, and she goes on to make some very disparaging remarks about Black men and their shiftlessness and being lazy. And she says that they ruined it for Black people, getting high and pimping and stealing, wheeling, and dealing. She said that they should have studied like the Jewish men. They then get into a big argument about it, and Garrett actually tries to cut her off by saying, now listen, bitch. Garrett agrees with her in the end and says that his father was a little shiftless, and she keeps lecturing him as they go out. This gave me the vibe of two people who liked working together and improvised or ad-libbed something that worked out really, really well. Much like the other Black Perspective that I really enjoyed with Julian Bond, her body of work and her political stances throughout her life and her career make her making such a sweeping generalization hilarious. I really laughed when Garrett said, now listen, bitch. I thought they were both excellent here. There was a ton of energy in this one, and she seemed more comfortable with this than she was anywhere else on the show. This one gets really high marks for me.
I have to agree. It made me so happy to see the two of them together, just clearly having a good time. And her face when he called her bitch was beautiful. It was the perfect reaction, which of course it was.
That Julian Bond one was really good. I remember liking it a lot, and I liked this one a lot too. Now, when I heard them say, I know several self-sufficient whites," and he said, "Yeah, I know a few too." That was terrific. It started to feel like a real show there for a minute, but the way it escalated between them was just perfect. They kept such a good pace. I thought Detroit used to be a nice town. It was really funny too. Her talking over him at the end, it felt real. He looked like it was real. Like, why are you talking over me right now? But she was all in.
Now off to World at War. A narration from Bill Murray as Richard Burton talks about how Dwight D. Eisenhower was on the brink of war and tried one last step before sending thousands of people to certain death on D-Day. He called in a 5-man Walker Brigade. We see a film clip that shows a platoon of able-bodied soldiers who used walkers instead of just walking because the Geneva Convention disallowed shooting at men with mobility aids. We see these guys jumping from planes and doing drills, all with walkers the whole time. We see them sneaking across the battlefield until Germany, with no regard for the Geneva Convention, just completely mows them down with machine guns. As a result of their failure, D-Day happened. I thought this was hilarious. And the use of actual World War II film with the stuff they shot with their own people. I saw Bill in there. I saw Dan in there. I thought it was very impressive the way they could match the video in the pre-digital age. Really enjoyed this, laughed a lot. Didn't laugh much at Bill Murray's Richard Burton, which I never think is that great, but I liked his performance in this. I did give this one a big points for me this time. Really, really, really enjoyed this.
It comes as no surprise that I also really, really enjoyed this. I was not expecting the Walker Brigade to be dudes with walkers, and the way they did it was beautiful. It had a bit of a Monty Python vibe to it, just with the old-timey footage, and the ridiculousness of the situation. Very high points for me on this one.
Yeah, caught me off guard. I laughed. I rolled my eyes. I thought it was hilarious and stupid and very silly and very good. The walking behind the German lines was great. And the little map with the walkers pushing back the swastikas to the sea. Oh, my God. Come on.
Yes, the map.
They're all jagged there amongst the dead bodies. Yeah, it was great. I thought of Monty Python, too.
We are now off at ex-police. Jane and Lorraine play roommates. Lorraine teaches special ed. Jane is a doctor. Jane says she had a rough day, and Lorraine offers to start rubbing her back. Dan and Bill then come in as the ex-police, two guys who were kicked off the force about a year ago. They are arresting Jane and Lorraine for being lesbians. They came to the conclusion because they're two single women that live alone, and Bill hit on Lorraine, and she did not reciprocate. Bill pistol whips Lorraine. Dan then takes Jane and smashes her head off the wall until he kills her. He yells at her the whole time. With Jane dead, Bill and Dan decide to wake up Lorraine and convince her that she did it. Lorraine wakes up, and she doesn't go along with it. Bill then pistol whips her again, and she falls to the ground, or she falls to the couch, and they decide to kill her and throw her out the window. They say they have to get out before the real police come, and then Jane in front of the old dragnet conviction wall. They say that she was sentenced and killed by another inmate. Holy shit. For an episode that is off the rails for PC, this one was particularly low. This was actually a miserable sketch. Besides the excessive use of a pejorative term that starts with a D used to describe lesbians, this is two armed madmen. This is the third ex-police. I didn't like the other ones too much either, but they at least had a degree of like overly diligent lawmen. This one is more like just lynching bigots. I hated this sketch. There was nothing good about this sketch. It was mean.
There are a shocking number of hate crimes in this episode. All I wrote down about this sketch was what the fuck.
Shocking. Wow. Indeed, very shocking. Listen, I laughed when he said another homosexuality-related death after there was literally just a murder. And again, I'm trying to put this in a context here. The city at this time that they live in, just a rat-infested, stinky hellhole of a city. There are hookers and drug dealers everywhere, porno theaters all over the city. Crime is through the roof. They just had the serial killer. They just suffered through the blackout. Like, what a miserable place this can be in certain parts, of course. Two blocks over from all the glitz and glamour. So listen, doesn't make anything okay. The slurs? Oh my gosh, I couldn't. The use was intense, especially the meet your maker line. I was like, holy shit, this is dark. And it was essentially a sketch about serial killers. They throw in the title cards, and they've got it's the almost like over the top acting. It does have that 42nd Street vibe, and her being assaulted by a fellow inmate later and dying, that like they know what they're doing. That is so dark that she just died later anyway.
Yeah. I guess in their defense on that one, and I don't want to defend this, that and another homosexual related death or another marijuana, those have been recurring themes of this. Like, everyone who's been arrested is later killed by another inmate. In the context of this sketch, it's terrible. Sorry, Matt, go on.
No, I was done.
After 3 appearances, this is the last ex-police. We don't ever have to watch one of these again. And I wish they knew it was going to be the last one, so they could have killed the ex-police at the end instead of Lorraine.
That would have been better.
From that darkness, let's go to something really light and silly. It's Cicely Sings Cicely. It's an ad for an album. Cicely Tyson singing Italian folk songs. It's narrated by Don Pardo. This is the album where the woman and the island of the same name meet. And it's not just an album for people who love the two Sicilies. We get an image of Cicely Tyson dressed in a traditional Italian garb over audio of Cicely Tyson singing Sicilian folk songs. This was short, and I thought it was hilarious.
It was great as a time filler, yeah. There wasn't much to it, but it filled up the space, and it didn't offend me in any way, so I'm taking that as a win.
That's a bonus tonight, yeah.
I agree that it was a nice bit of silly fun. What a ridiculous concept. It was funny listening to get all the names of the songs get rhymed off one after the other too.
Yeah.
Her pictures over the stock photos made me laugh out loud with her big smile over the clearly matte screen. Only one album sold per family? I protest.
Cicely sings Cicely. We're now off to Litellavision. It's Emily Litella, and it's a Litellavision show. Gilda is back as Emily for the first time in a long, long time. She tells folks to make some tea and some toast and to sit down and watch a special presentation of George Gershwin's Porgy and Bess. So we get Cicely Tyson and Garrett singing I Loves You Porgy from Porgy and Bess. Tyson sings her part straight, and then Garrett starts singing with a Porky Pig sort of stutter speech impediment. The camera pans out to show all the band sitting there or playing with pig masks on. Special note, Paul Shaver's pig mask has his glasses on. We then have a cut back to Emily, who says it's nice to know that people are writing music for stuttering pigs. And she promotes next week's episode, which will feature Rodeo and Juliet. This was pretty good. It looked like Tyson was going to break up a bit at Garrett doing the stutter. They're both very good singers. I really enjoyed this. This was a nice, I thought, inoffensive way to end the night.
I loved this because I kind of forgot what Emily Litella's shtick was. So I thought she said Porgy and Bess, and then I thought they were just kind of doing the love duet. And then when Garrett started doing the stutter, I cracked up. Cicely was clearly trying not to crack up. And then the musicians in the pig masks. And then I was like, oh, and I finally put it together about Emily Litella. So I loved it, mostly because I was thick at the start of it.
It's been a while for Emily, so, I'm okay with checking it out. I'm not going to sell it out right away. This was a very smart sketch to have on so late. I thought it was a very great late show sketch. She's definitely breaking. She was loving being there, and she was laughing. They kept it short, and the masks killed me. God, the masks were awesome. This is, again, I've said it already this episode, what good late night TV we have here. And I'm glad Emily Litella was just kind of a framing device.
Mm-hmm. 27 appearances over 26 episodes. This is the last we ever see of Emily Litella.
Wow. Well, let's take a moment. What a character that I have hated passionately at times.
Yeah. Emily is kind of the first big recurring character that was beaten to death with us constantly having to watch it. And then they pulled back and we liked her again. And now she's gone.
Kind of too bad she'll be gone, but it's nice she got a really good ending.
Yeah, she did. She goes out on a high note. We've hit a part of the show. I mean, this is, we still get more Gilda, but this is the last we're going to get of Emily ever. That's really sad, kind of, in a weird way, as much as she pissed us off.
Yeah, it's kind of like she dies a little bit. It is a little weird, like somebody you're never going to see again.
It's a weird sort of thing because she's been with us since the fourth episode, something like that.
I remember those bits with Chevy Chase.
Cheddar cheese, you mean? Cheddar cheese.
Oh, cheddar. And don't get me wrong, when it first started, I laughed. But like when you were talking to Adrienne there, they just beat it into the ground. They just started rolling it out so constantly and beating the joke to death that I turned on it hard.
And I mean, I'm there with Rosanna Dana now, but we still got more of that. We're not losing our cast member here, but we're losing a character that's been around a lot. Fortunately, power of video, you can always go back and watch more Emily if you want.
Not gonna do it.
No, not much.
No, I'm not gonna do it voluntarily, but when she shows up, it was okay.
Yeah. So Talking Heads, song's called Artists Only. It's from More Songs About Buildings and Food. This, apparently, I couldn't find that it was ever released as a single. Again, I can't deny, distinct sound, and so far from a lot of the stuff that was out there at the time and out there now and out there anytime since. I kind of enjoyed this one a bit more than the first one because it is an original. You know, again, Byrne's vocal weirdness works better here, and it fits the vibe of the song musically and lyrically. But again, he can just be a tad much for me. As a musical entity, though, I thoroughly enjoyed them. As an artist, I thoroughly enjoyed them. I just, one or two songs at a time is enough for me.
I could have had more. We're differing there. Yeah. I like Artists Only. and I liked their performance of it. This was a great way to finish off the show.
I didn't like this song as much as the first one, but neither are my favorite Talking Heads songs, but they're a very important post-punk band. They were weird and cool, and I think this is exactly the kind of musical guest that Saturday Night Live should showcase more regularly. The weird up and coming, they should be looking for the next it band. You want to be a cutting edge late night TV show on the big network, the number 3 network. But anyway, when's the last time I've gone off about the music? I've been really placated lately, and I've already mentioned that season 4 has really. The show has really turned into what I remember it being, and also what I wanted it to be when we first started watching.
You're going to love season 6. We're now off to the good nights. Cicely Tyson just gets mobbed by the group. She says she had a wonderful week. I totally believe her. Everybody seems to be having just an awesome time. Couldn't help but notice Ann Beats is up there with them for some reason. Gilda points at her and yells something at the camera, but I couldn't make it out. Very happy good nights. They all looked as if they don't realize what they'd done for the past hour and a half.
Yeah. Did her mic stop working at one point as well, or was it just hard to make out what she was saying?
I think it was hard to make out what she was saying.
David Byrne just did not know what to do with himself. What an awkward fucking man. He wasn't talking to anybody. He was just standing there looking, and he didn't know what to do with his hands. And it was just a weird little fella. I couldn't take my eyes off him.
So let's try to rate this thing. First off, we'll start with Cicely Tyson. She was good. Very good. Excellent, actually. But they only gave her a couple things that were really great for her. As far as I'm concerned, very talented, versatile actor. She didn't get enough, I didn't think. I enjoyed her throughout, but her bits in the Widettes and Nick probably could have been anyone. She was funny in Frontier Midwife, but my God, what a terrible ending. Good job in the monologue. Great job in Black Perspectives and Porky and Bess. Though she had some really high shining moments here. I kind of thought they wasted a really good opportunity with Cicely Tyson to give her a bit more to work with. Based on our comments, I know you guys might disagree with this, but I thought she was excellent, but not used well.
Yeah, I can second that. Everything that she had a major part in was good. I mean, except the end of Frontier Midwife, but she was phenomenal in that. Yeah, everything she did was great, but they didn't give her the right stuff to do.
Great job. Fantastic performances. All in on everything. Believability scale through the roof. What an actress. One of the best true actresses I think we have ever seen on the show. I was sold by everything she was doing, and I thought she was used excellently, actually, and balanced well with a cast that has a hit show that is fucking on fire. Don't get me wrong, I see where you're coming from. They could have did more. There was a couple of things that could have been anybody, but you know what? Shit, she gave it their all, and she let others shine as well, and I think it was a complete success.
The music, I'm not a huge fan here. As a band, though, love the sound of the music, and definitely, as Matt said, this is a breath of fresh air from a lot of the usual fare we've been getting the first 4 seasons. As far as musical guests are concerned, they won't rank super high with me, but I'm glad they were there.
They were great. They were everything that should have been music on Saturday Night Live. 10 out of 10.
I thought the music was great as well. It was, as you said, breath of fresh air, change of pace, interesting visual performance that I found quite mesmerizing. God, Tina's so tiny, and everybody, I keep saying it, but everybody's just so cool, and David Byrne is so weird, and it does feel like you're watching a David Lynch movie for a second.
What is your worst sketch of the night?
Without a doubt, it was Ex-Police.
My worst sketch of the night, you know what, I don't pick this one very often, but my worst sketch of the night, I have to say Weekend Update. I thought it was oddly clunky. Weekend Update has been just on fire lately. It's been so good, and they've been knocking it out of the park, and everybody's been so comfortable, and this one just felt a little off and weird, and there was no guests, and it felt like a bit of an afterthought.
Yeah, I had a lot of options here, but Ex-Police was where I settled. Best sketch, folks?
I'd have to go with Porky and Bess. It surprised me and amused me in ways I wasn't expecting, and showcased both of their talents nicely. That's what I'm going to go with. It also ended the show, which was another plus on this episode.
Matthew?
I don't know if you noticed, but I liked a lot of the sketches tonight. I think my favorite is gonna have to be Nick the Lounge Singer. I really found him especially magnetic this episode, and in him I see my dreams. So it's really nice for me to watch him. I connect with the character personally. I think his performance is awesome. He's a little bit sleazy. He's a little bit lovable. And again, Lorraine taking the mic was just something that really grabbed me. I loved it.
We're going in 3 different ways. I went with Black Perspectives. Until Black Perspectives, I was like, am I going to have to change the rules of this thing and watch and pick Elvis's coat? I'm going to have to Black Perspectives for everything I said. I mean, they worked so well together. The opinions stated were such a juxtaposition to what her whole life was. And, Garrett's reaction, I probably laughed at Now Listen, Bitch harder than I should have. But Porky and Bess was good. Nick wasn't a bad Nick either. So the Walker Brigade was fun too. So there was some diamonds in the rough. Who was your star of the night, folks?
Garrett was the star of the night. He was wonderful with Cicely, and he didn't have that much more to do, but what he had more to do was not part of the terrible sketches.
That's 2 for Garrett. I really liked Lorraine Newman this episode. I thought she did a lot of strong stuff, but Garrett had some really outstanding work. As much as Lorraine made me laugh, he was clearly the featured player, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Garrett was stellar in this. Lorraine is a distant second, and everyone else is a distant also ran. Yeah, this was Garrett's episode, top to bottom. I've noticed in our stats when there's a host of color, Garrett gets more to do, and he always nails it. I wish I could go back in time and point that out, because it shouldn't have to be a black host for Garrett to get his due. Overall, oh boy, a lot of this was just bad writing. Things were underdeveloped. Things ended abruptly. Things not even being half-baked. The host was used well, and she did what she could for the most part. But the real story of this episode is how uncomfortable I was. They had no way of knowing how history would turn out, but they did have a way of knowing what is smart and what is funny. Even at that point was inappropriate, and they didn't they didn't adhere to that, I guess. I don't know what the writers were going for tonight. It just really, really rough, and I am not offended by much. There's a lot I can watch and thoroughly enjoy that most of my peers would be disgusted by. I'm also not one that is typical to say, well, there was an offensive line in that film, so therefore I can't consider, the acting job or the cinematography. But this one, just the content at times was just so out there for what this show has been. They've pushed envelopes, but never so much in so short of amount of time. And certainly I don't think I'm being oversensitive here. We did get some recurring characters, but they didn't lay too heavily on that. Music was okay, but again, just not really for me. What was good was really good. What was bad was really bad, and there wasn't much in the middle. I wound up giving this one actually a 4 out of 10, which is harsh, but maybe not as harsh as it should be.
I gave this episode a 3 out of 10. And that's after me giving the Talking Heads a 10 out of 10. There were some great parts, but there wasn't much else that, the stuff that was bad was so bad, and so bad in ways that it could have still had the same sort of idea to the sketch, but not been as hateful. I had to give it a 3.
Let's see what's up. The cold open and the monologue were a great 1-2 punch for me. Nice to see the coat again. I'd forgot about it. And the visual of the coat hanging in the darkness made me laugh out loud again. The big ass people, I forget their name. You know how I felt about that. I did a 180 on that. There was that weird ambassador sketch that was ambitious, but everybody was really good at it. Really cool musical guest. The Frontier Midwife and ex-cops were just, I do think they know what they were doing, and oh my god, and it was shocking television. It really was. I mean, I don't even know what to say, because because mission accomplished. I was friggin' shocked. And I couldn't believe they went there a few times. It was super dark. Nick, I don't need to talk about Nick the Lounge Singer anymore. It was my favorite sketch of the night. The Black Perspective sketch was hilarious. The chemistry, Walker was silly. Listen, good host, good musical guest. Weekend Update was soft. I have been a person that has been very finger pointy at the show about what I would like out of it and what I expect out of it. And while this is not quite what I had in mind, they are out there in a certain time doing something that's very much of an era and of a place, I think, as well. This is the highest. They're making their mark doing it, which can't be denied. I gave this episode a 9 out of 10.
Holy shit. Wow.
That's going to make the average a lot more even.
It's still not high. With my 4, Matt's 9, and Adrienne's 3, we wind up with a 5.3. So we give it a 5.3. The folks over at the IMDb give it a 7 out of 10. They have ranked this one as 13th of the season, which I think is high. But yeah, our rating there. Matt, there are some things in this episode, and I will admit, as much as I despised it, that you have been asking for. Not the hate, not the viciousness, but they're pushing envelopes and they're showcasing music that you like. And and you did enjoy the sketches a lot more than us. So I can see where you came up with your high mark. Maybe not a 9, but I can see where you come up with your high mark.
I mean, like you said, this is what I've been waiting for, asking for. I want the show to push the envelope. That's what I expect out of it. And I'm not going to sit here and flip them off now that they give it to me. I have to recognize that while it didn't arrive in the package I thought it would arrive in, it arrived. You know, you can't just sit back and joke about hate crime. I know that. I'm not a crazy person, but I also know this is New York at the end of the 70s, and I appreciate what it was like, and I think it's important to understand that. This is why I serve the public in the way that I do.
So yeah, I wanted to point out, we are at a point in the show, we are halfway through season 4, and we are now going to start seeing our recurring characters fall off by the boatload. Today was ex-police Jason, Emily Litella, E. Buzz Miller's already gone, Larry Farber is gone, Lowell Brock is gone, the Land Shark is technically gone. We're going to be seeing a lot of things fall off from here on out. And the next wave are kind of on their way in, like Rosanna Dana has already replaced Emily Litella. Does this feel like, especially for you, Matt, but Adrienne as well, does this feel like sort of a changing of the guard already?
Yes, it really does. The show is showing growth, and I think that's exciting to watch. It's fun to watch.
I'm really glad I got to see Talking Heads do their thing. And I'm glad I got to see the terrible sketches as well, the ones that really upset me, because now I'll have some other benchmarks for any future ones I see.
Yeah, very, very true. Yeah. Adrienne, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I hope you'll be back.
I hope so too. And it was my pleasure.
You will volunteer to return though after this, right?
Even after this, yes.
All right. So Matt, you and I are going to be back next week. Do you know who the host and musical guests are?
Don't tell me, because I was too distracted by David Byrne being weird on stage when he was talking.
So the host is Ricky Nelson.
Oh, okay.
And the musical guest is Judy Collins.
Judy Collins. What does Judy Collins sing?
I have no idea.
Oh, her. I just Googled it. Yeah, I'm not going to like her.
Okay. So Matt and I will be back in about a week with Ricky Nelson and Judy Collins. But until then, we'll be watching Litellavision as it signs out for the last time here in SNHell.